My name is Charlie Bombalier, and I am a survivor of childhood abuse. Do not misconstrue this speech as a cry for pity. It is not. The purpose of this speech is to make aware of the aftermath of what happens to children after they leave an institution where they've been abused, or in any home that they've been abused for that matter. Imagine yourself in the most terrific, horrible place that you can be, where everything is moving around you, everything is changing faster than you can keep up with, and you have no control. It's like a massive earthquake. Eventually it stops, but the aftershocks will slowly start. These aftershocks start slowly and magnify themselves in these abused children's minds. It is done because they can't get help at the beginning when they leave. They don't know where to get help. Sometimes the worst part is they can't even go back to their families, because those are the ones that put them in that situation. So they're out in the streets. Sometimes they have to beg for food. And more so than not, they get into drugs. They get into alcohol. And now they have one of the highest rates of suicide in all of the United States. All of this is happening right here in the United States. There is a certain things that happens in the minds of the abused, and that is when the aftershock starts. There are things that happen beyond their capacity to comprehend. So it starts slowly most of the time, and it gets to the point where they can't function anymore. There are times when someone does help them, and they can recover. The aftershocks can last for years. In many cases, it lasts for a lifetime. They can happen without cause or by the slightest little thing. These aftershocks can be triggered by a sad song, a loud sound, the sound of silence, a dark room. Many other things can happen. 50 years since I breathed the freedom, the air of freedom. And I still fear the dark. I sleep with a night light on, and I have a flashlight within reach. I still can't get over that. That was caused by endless days and nights in a dark closet so that you couldn't even see the hand in front of your face. Other things happen to other people. You never, ever forget some things. You never forget the hissing sound of a leather belt as it switches through the air, and the sizzling burn as it curls on barren skin. You never forget having to beg for food, having to beg for clothing, for a bathroom break, even having to beg for punishment undeserved. These are things that resonate over and over again in many of the abused people's minds. And the problem is that it's getting bigger and bigger and larger and larger. Let me take you to our state alone. We're the third most infested state in the nation that have boarding schools that are unlicensed, unregulated, merely by the word of religious. The worst right now are the independent fundamentalist Baptists. They dominate the industry right now, and it has evolved into $1 billion industry. a recent investigation by Tampa Bay Tribune newspaper discovered that many unregulated and unlicensed schools are here in Florida that abuse the children with physical corporal punishment and sexual abuse. The state of Florida has finally said that they were going to investigate, but in the last 3 months, we haven't heard a beat. Here's the worst part. In 1984, 29 years ago, the Florida legislature decided to pass a law that denies any state officials from investigating any cases of abuse. What they did do is they gave those rights to an organization called FACA, which is Florida Christian Children's Center. They alone can investigate any calls of abuse. And to further the damage, the law allows them not to have to report to any Florida authority. They are the investigators, and they can keep it to themselves and handle it in-house. But here's the kicker. Every board member of FACA is the pastor and owner of these unlicensed, unregulated boarding schools. Yes, it's the fox handling the hen house, guarding the hen house. That is why SIA, which by the way I'm the director for the state of Florida, SIA is short for Survivors of Institutional Abuse. That is why we're going to start this year right. And we're going to start with petitions. We're going to start with letters. We're going to start in the internet. And here's the reason that I'm here before you. I need your help. I can't do it alone. And some of you have already come in and helped us. And it's wonderful. But I need each and every one of you's help. Tomorrow, next week, the week after that, we're going to get together as a team and start a drive. This is what we want to change. We want to eradicate the 1984 law. And we want to put an amendment that stops all corporal punishment in any of these boarding schools, regardless of what religious affiliation they're with. We want to put a 24-hour hotline that any kid in any institution can use at any time without fear of repercussion or punishment, and jail time for those that do stop them and they find out about it. We want to have each and every one of these boarding schools regulated. They have to be licensed. They have to have accredited teachers in there, which they don't. And they have to be doing the right thing for these children. And it's sad, but it's true that in the 60s and 70s, there was a state boarding school ran by the state of Florida, which is better known as the White House Boys in Marietta, Florida. So far, they have found 81 graves, and they expect it to be higher because they're finding that they're doubling up the bodies in these graves. The legislature doesn't really want to reopen this case because it's shame on them. But we're going to force them to do it. We're going to get together with the newspaper. I already got a hold of her, the lady that did the investigation, and we're going to pursue this so that they do open it again. In closing, I want to tell you that when I was 15 and a half, 6 months after my release, and I, for the first time, breathed the air of freedom, I swore to myself that I would never beg anyone for anything, even if it cost me my life. And I've kept that promise. Tonight, I'm going to make an exception for this cause. Because as I stand here in front of you, I'm going to beg you to step forward and be counted and help us win this fight for these children. Mr. Douglas.